Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the first signs of Sunak's Brexit policies as he gives the impression that his government is not all that keen on destroying over 2,000 important rights and protections, but that he's probably powerless to stop it in the long term. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it's actually a little tricky for me to get a handle on where Sunak stands on Brexit. He campaigned to leave the EU, and there's no sign he did so for political advancement reasons. He'd been an MP for about a year at the time of the referendum, and the Tory party leadership was in favour of remaining, so we can assume that he was a genuine Brexiteer. He also voted to leave the EU without any agreement at all in 2019, but then later as Chancellor, he was deeply concerned about the prospects of ending up with no deal at all and a trade war with the EU. So had he changed his mind about EU deals, or was he just voting for the extreme hard Brexit in 2019 to appeal to a certain section of the Tory party? I couldn't tell you. People assume that because Rishi Sunak seems to have his head screwed on, that he couldn't possibly push for the sort of Brexit harms that Johnson and Truss seemed happy with, mostly through ignorance. But as Chancellor, although yes, he wanted to avoid a full-blown trade war, he didn't seem all that bothered about, for example, our exclusion from Horizon. But the fact that the Brexit purists were so against Sunak becoming leader suggests that they fear he will be too pragmatic and ultimately not really give them the full hard Brexit they demand. And when you consider all of his Brexit behaviours, there are more than a few contradictions that for me tell me that some of them have to be to have gotten various groups on side. But I don't know which ones. I don't know where he genuinely stands. I also don't know if he thought one way about Brexit a few years ago and then just changed his mind, since finding out a bit more perhaps. As far as I can tell, what Sunak probably wants is for this sort of vision of a deregulated financial sector, but for everything else to be linked into the single market. There's no need to cause economic harm that way. Basically get the benefits of separation for the City of London without the drawbacks for the rest of the economy. He's a banker after all. The financial markets is what he knows. And as far as I can tell, what he cares about. And there are certainly Brexiteers who want that. There are Brexiteers who basically wanted nothing more than unhooking the City of London from the EU, but not necessarily everything else. Effectively, the cherry-picking Brexiteers. They won't get it, can't work. The EU are clear from the start that they won't entertain the notion of a Singapore on the Thames having easy access to their own market. But that's what he potentially wants. But we're now getting the first signs of a little bit of Brexit policy from Sunak. During the summer leadership contest, as he was melting down and promising all sorts of mad things in order to out-crazy Truss, in order to appeal to those Tory party members, he said that what they call EU laws and regulations, they're our laws and regulations, but the ones we had as EU members, they'd all be torn up. He had a video of them, they're all thrown away, all torn up, all shredded. And he promised to do so within the first 100 days of becoming Prime Minister. Well, he's Prime Minister now. He's like a couple of days in. How are we getting there? I mean, he only became Prime Minister 49 days later than planned. So, there's no reason for him not to carry on this policy, is there? But apparently the policy will not now be put into action. Oh, right, okay. According to a report, one of those close to Sunak said, and I quote, "The time for changes in the machinery of government has passed." What on earth does that mean? Also, like I say, it's only 49 days later than planned for something he said he'd do in the first 100 days. It's not like the general election has to be just around the corner. He can't claim he's out of time. So I suspect that what we've got here is a mad promise that was made during the summer out of sheer desperation as he was losing the contest, and that he's now deleting it with the implication that, it's all Truss's fault. In fact, that's probably what he's going to do with everything that he promised. I would have done it. Of course I would have done it. But unfortunately, Truss just messed everything up. 49 days of chaos. She made such an arse of things that all bets are off. But in practical terms, what it means is that Sunak is implying he's not all that keen on chopping 2,400 legacy rules and regulations from our time in the EU. Workers' rights, consumer rights, health and safety regulations, environmental protections, and so on. They're not really in Sunak's sights after all. Truth be told, this was mostly Jacob Rees-Mogg anyway. That was his vision for Brexit. He's not in the government anymore. Other ERG members will maybe be split on the issue as well. And it's not like the danger has really gone away. There's these so-called investment zones. They could still have the effect of obliterating these rights in large pockets of the country. That being said, the Times seems to be claiming that Sunak is not keen on these either. So we'll see. I also noticed that Sunak's not going to be appointing a Brexit minister. So you could look at it all and say, well, probably what Sunak wants to do is let Brexit burn itself out in the background, with him having a policy of not putting the fire out. He daren't put the fire out, that'll upset the ERG, but at least not contributing any more fuel to it. The real question is what happens to the bill, though, because that is passing through Parliament. I talked about it last week. There is a bill passing through Parliament that says that all of these rules and regulations that the Brexiteers called EU rules and regulations are just going to disappear on the 31st of December 2023. Just gone. Your right to paid annual leave, all this sort of stuff just doesn't exist anymore. Unless a minister in a particular department says, oh, well, let's keep that one for a little bit. In which case they don't disappear until halfway through 2026. But they still disappear. Is that bill going to be chopped? Is it? Yeah, it seems to be under review. It had its second reading in the House of Commons earlier this week and, of course, passed. Will Sunak drop it before it gets to its third reading? The problem is that until there's some closure on this, it'll continue to be a source of uncertainty for businesses. Right now, a bill is passing through Parliament that says that 2,400 rules and regulations are suddenly going to disappear at the end of December 2023. Unless ministers intervene to save some or all of them. And even then, it's only a stay of execution until the middle of 2026, unless Parliament specifically creates new legislation to do the same thing. And of course, Parliament has not got the time to put through 2,400 new rules and regulations that do basically the same thing. So this means all of those rights, all of those protections just gone. All get the chop unless the bill is either dropped or significantly amended. And until it is dropped or significantly amended, and those amendments accepted by the government, businesses will have no idea what the rules are for conducting their business. For someone who may have some idea of how investment works, at least a little better idea than Johnson or Truss had, Sunak, you would think, will want to deal with this as soon as possible, because right now it's a massive source of uncertainty. But he's not really in a position to drop the bill, even if he wanted to. He may be Prime Minister, but just as with Truss before him, he's politically weak. Unless he can demonstrate he's an election winner, he will continue to have a very weak grip on power. Johnson was immediately given authority because of his becoming a Tory mayor of the Labour-leaning City of London. That marked him out as something special. They accepted him as a winner from day one, even before he actually won the election. Sunak doesn't have those credentials. He can't afford to take on any faction within his party. So we've got another little Brexit contradiction with Sunak. He was promising to speed up the process of dropping these regulations, the bonfire of EU red tape as they call it, but he's now dropped that promise, indicating that he knows it was a very stupid thing to do. But he surely lacks the authority to kill the bill completely because the ERG would do their nut. Does he let it pass to the House of Lords and play ping pong with them for a bit in the hope that it all gets dragged out for so long that he's got time to establish his authority and then drop it later on? I mean, if the polls have already started to turn, by the way, but there's still a big lead for Labour. If he can get that lead down to nothing, preferably even sneak ahead, he may imagine, oh, well, I'll be in a good position then. And he absolutely would be in a good position. I just don't think he's going to get there. But that, I mean, it also in the meantime leaves the uncertainty in place for businesses. Businesses wanted to make investment decisions and it's like, oh, so what are the rules in this place we might want to invest? We don't know. Right? We don't know. We don't know what the rules are going to be in 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027. No matter how far ahead you look, we don't know what the rules are going to be. In theory, this bill could pass in its current form in a year's time, giving businesses about 2 months' notice that a load of laws are basically going to disappear in smoke. Or it could be dropped and all of those rules remain in place. We don't know. It's insane. But the current trajectory remains as it was with truss. We may expect pragmatism to win over in the end, because it actually would be, in anyone's books, lunacy to actually destroy all of these rules and regulations. So we can expect, well, surely there's going to be some sort of fiddle, but we don't know that. We might hope that Sunak's government explodes and we get a general election next year to stop this madness before it can even take place. But we don't know that either. So over 6 years after the referendum, we still don't really know what post-Brexit Britain is going to look like, because those in charge of it don't know either. They're still tossing around their hot potato in the hopes of passing it to someone who knows what to do with it. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.